We will not have time to answer all of them, all the questions. However, we would like to group at least the similar questions and make sure we cover the most interesting ones. The flow of agenda for the meeting today would be introduction to the Founder Institute, followed by the speaker introductions, a quick talk about the speaker's entrepreneurial journey, and last would be the panel discussion followed by Q&A. So before I go ahead and introduce the speakers, I would request Mr. Vadiraj to give us an introduction to the Founder Institute. Over to you, Vadi.
Yep. Thanks, Lakshmi. I think thanks for all the participants who have joined in. I think we got a lot of interest and a lot of registrations. So Founder Institute, what you usually call as FI, I think it's world's largest pre-seed accelerator, I think across 185 plus cities across the world. And it has close to around 4,000 plus founders who have graduated and formed companies during the last 11, 12 years. It was started in 2009, and it has created an amazing kind of ventures. Which has a close to around, I think it's been able to raise around 900 plus million funding for the cohort from the cohort companies. So far in the 11 years, solving very intricate problems, solving across the domain problems, across finance, across retail, across automotive. And what Founder Institute believes in is actually, I think, since it operates as a pre-seed accelerator, I think, it wants to work with entrepreneurs at a very early stage who have ideas or who might not have ideas and who want to take the path, which is a kind of curated path by the huge learning across so many years. And the real DNA of Founder Institute is it believes in entrepreneurs. I think more than the idea, I think what it believes is in terms of the actual entrepreneurs or the founders itself. And they have a very super framework to make and curate and take them through the journey. It works across not just pre-seed. I think it also, I think it can be pre-seed, and some of the companies who also join are also where I think they have validated and they want to join for the next stage of growth. So what you call as launch track as well as growth track. And further to that, I think we also help the entrepreneurs and founders. As they graduate, and graduation with FI is quite a tough task. Going through the whole grilling of the framework and the experiences from the mentors who are very candid. The guys like Sandeep and Abhinav, whom you will hear, I think they would have seen those experiences, and that is what makes it very tough. And the ones who graduate, I think we are also going to help them with the Founding Lab initiative of kind of how to raise the next round of fundings and how to take the whole next round of growth. For the companies. So that's in a nutshell about Founder Institute. I think I don't want to spend too much time on this. We want to spend the evening hearing from the actual guys who can share their experiences. Over to Sandeep and Abhinav. So Lakshmi, I think you can take it from here.
Thank you, Vadi, for the introduction. So before we start with the speaker introduction, I would like to give you a quick overview of the topic that we have for today. Do you want to start your own technology company but don't know where to get started? You're not alone. Every day, millions of people dream up new business ideas, but relatively few know how to truly take action and implement them. At the Employee to Entrepreneur event, you will hear the stories, tips, and best practices of those who previously left their jobs in order to pursue their own startup journeys. Listen to the experience of people like you who have made this transition and discuss the questions and concerns that you have. For today's virtual online event, we are featuring special guest, Mr. Sandeep Kochar, who is a founder of Blue Minds Consulting, and Mr. Abhinav Pathak, who is the CEO of Purpure. Our special thanks to Sandeep Kochar, who has been accommodative to the last minute change as our earlier speaker had to drop out due to an emergency. Our first speaker is a storyteller, a TEDx speaker, LinkedIn Top Voices 2019. Sandeep Kochar is an MBA from IIM Bangalore, an electronics and telecommunication engineer with more than 18 years of corporate consulting experience. He is the founder CEO of Blue Minds Consulting, an eclectic leadership consulting practice that operates across geographies in the space of unconventional learning in different areas of people consulting, coaching, and leadership. Many more from Sandeep in the later part of the session. And our second speaker Mr. Abhinav Pathak is a dynamic young entrepreneur. Abhinav quit his high-flying corporate career from Goldman Sachs early on to start his fintech company Purpule. It's now a popular name in retail and payment space. An engineer from NIT Surathkal, Purple is being used by large retail brands such as Big Bazaar, Hypercity, Food Hall, More, Spar, Spencer's, and many more. I would request Sandeep Kochar, who is one of our top rated mentors, to speak a few words about his journey from an employee to entrepreneur. Sandeep, over to you. Sandeep?
Yeah, you had muted me, so I couldn't speak.
All right.
so,
Now
so great,
unmuted.
great. Thanks a lot, Lax, for that, and thank you, Vadiraj, and hi, Abhinav. Good to be here with all of you. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. So I'll quickly share my journey as an entrepreneur. I worked for around 15, 16 years, and then after that, so I'm a techie. Basically, I did technology for many years, and after that, I started to question what I was doing and why I was doing. So I'm not the typical entrepreneur who's, maybe somebody like Abhinav who's realized very early on in life. It took a long time for me to realize what I had to do and why. So I think it was a very interesting phase in my life when I was a CTO with an edtech startup, and frankly, every day I used to feel very jaded going to work. Every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, all were really horrible, and therefore I just one day decided to quit my job. I did not have any visibility on what I will do and how I'll do it. While I was in the process of quitting my job, I also started to look for opportunities and look at assignments. So I picked up a consulting assignment where I was managing, the cloud services of 5 companies in US. Worked with them for a few months, and then later on that didn't work out very well, so I had to quit that. I became a professor for some time. I started to teach. I realized I can't deal with the young people anymore. And that was quite frustrating because I think the new generation is very different from my generation. After that, I did a couple of gigs with startups. I started to volunteer with startups. One of them offered me a job also, and then I kind of said no to it because that was not what I wanted to do. I set up an incubator. I did various things for almost a couple of years. And then one day, a couple of my childhood friends called me and said, we have an idea to set up a startup. And I said, okay, so let's do it. So we started with a startup which was dealing in shirts. And we cracked a good client in the Middle East. We started to export shirts to Middle East. And then, we also started something on shoes. Now, I never had any understanding of business other than my MBA that I did. And frankly, I don't think MBAs teach you how to, start businesses. They only teach you how to build businesses, or shall I say, run them. So my first few ventures and all, they did not do very well because we couldn't get customers. After that, I did a couple of more, ventures where I became a co-founder in a startup, and so several others. And then finally, after almost 2 years of going around here and there, I decided to start my own venture. I did not know what to start on, so I thought, okay, let's just do consulting, which is what I was doing. So that's how I kind of began, and then I found my co-founder who very kindly agreed to join, and we started to move forward. The first 100 days was very tough because we did not know what to sell and to whom to sell, and I had no selling experience. So we started doing these coffee conversations, and I did maybe 100 of them, 200 of them, and my co-founder did 200. So I think Starbucks is a place where we used to do all these conversations. And finally, we cracked our first client. So after around 3 months, we got our first client, and that's how we started to kind of move forward. So a lot of ups and downs came in the business, and we built basically a service-based organization and slowly started to consult in areas of HR, technology, and marketing. almost a year after that, I thought of, after so the first I did built a couple of businesses. One we did was a hiring business, which started to do well. And then I thought of really doing something which is more closer to my heart. So as a kid, I used to love to write. So I started to write. So 3 years back, I started writing on LinkedIn, and I don't know what happened. It was very good. The response was extremely good. Within 3 months, the first 100 days, I was hitting 2 million views. And as time went by, it started to grow. So it's been 3 years since I've been doing that. And strangely, what also started to happen was that people started writing to me, for the personal struggles that they were going through. So we started to help a lot of people in different ways. And we also started to get business. So later on, I came to know this is organic marketing. So we started to get a lot of business which came in organically. And now it's been 3 years. We've cracked 100 clients. We work with all the top firms. We are now a content organization. We create content, viral content, and we crossed 140 million views in the last 3 years, and 300,000 followers now on LinkedIn and counting. And I mean, that's been the good story. Now, in terms of what did not work, well, a lot of things did not work. A lot of businesses that we tried, a lot of initiatives we tried did not work. But we just kept doing things based on whatever came our way. So the only thing I learned through all of this was that every single day you have to add new skills, and the space at which the organization or the startup grows is in some ways proportional to the pace at which the entrepreneur grows. So yeah, I mean, that's been the endeavor and the journey. And I'll be happy to take questions afterwards also. But yeah, that's in short. I will answer one question though. This is our business was very simple because it's service based, so it is bootstrapped. um, Maybe 100,000 Indian rupees is all what we required to build it. Now we are building a product after 3 years, 3.5 years in this journey, and we're planning to build a couple of products now. And yeah, I mean, we work also in the area of transforming organizations, transforming people. So marketing is our core area, content, and that's pretty much been my journey. In terms of fears, I had a lot of fears when I gave up my job. Throughout my working career, my biggest fear was to lose my job. So when I quit my job, it was definitely a lot of fear that was staring in my face. I used to be a very insecure person, and maybe part of it still is. But I think through this journey, I learned to face my fears and face when things go completely wrong. So we faced a lot of challenges. We've had cases where things did not go right. um, but I think the endeavor has always been that can you learn and focus on action. The first couple of years of the startup were very, very tough, and we were like hustling. Only later I realized that was waste of a lot of time because we were not focused. So laser sharp focus is what is required. I think those who hustle only die, but those who really get through it are the ones who are able to move forward. um, Now, for employees who want to become an entrepreneur, I think the easiest and the best route is to maybe start with freelancing, consulting, and then slowly move to volunteer with startups and to move in that direction. And slowly you'll learn and grow. So that's pretty much my bit. Happy to take questions. Lax, over to you.
Thank you, Sandeep. That was an interesting description. And now I would request Mr. Abhinav Pathak, CEO of Perpure, to speak a few words to the house.
You have to unmute him, Lax.
Abhinav, you there?
You have to unmute him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So thanks, Lakshmi. Thanks, Vadiraj, for having me here. And hello, everyone. Really excited to share my journey with you. And Sandeep, I must say, it's a fantastic story of what you've built so far. And congrats to you for that. I think my journey is very different from yours. And I think that's the good part of our country and our like the blooming entrepreneurial ecosystem right now in India. But largely, I mean, how I started, I graduated from NIT Surathkal in 2015. So it's just been 5 years out of college for me. And I got a very good job. I was very thankful to that job as well. And I think they did everything to right to kind of retain folks like me. But I think my interests were just very different. So I really enjoyed the job. I was there only for a very short stint of 15 months. But I think every single day in those 15 months, I thoroughly enjoyed built a good network, worked partially in New York and partially in India, 6 months each. And after that, I mean, it was very clear early on in my journey that I would want to be an entrepreneur. And not just be an entrepreneur. My you can say thesis was a bit different. Was to build something big, something which is very big, and is not just another you can say entity and company. Which is why we kind of took the venture capital route of building it, because that's how you kind of build large businesses from early on. So we were very clear with that, and I got co-founders from Goldman Sachs. One of them, and the third one happens to be my college junior. I think after working at Goldman for 1.5 years, we figured that it was the right time from a market positioning perspective, and I think retail really needed a change, which is why we kind of took a plunge. And somewhere towards the end of 2016, we quit our jobs to start Perpule, and we got full time into that. The journey has been, I think, quite humbling, with crazy amount of ups and downs. I think that's the best part of being an entrepreneur. And now I think I'm humbled to that level that it's just used to. When you don't have those ups and downs, it becomes boring and mundane. So I'm thankful that the journey has been so fruitful and encouraging so far. We started very simple, with the approach to kind of build a product which would enhance the experience in retail stores. And what we did first was to launch self checkouts. And I think this is a very well heard about concept in the West, but in India, it wasn't really there. And if you see India, the crowd in the peak hour rush at a retail store is a lot more than what it's there in the US, or any other country for that matter, right? Which is why we felt the mobile adoption in India was going off the roofs. And if we give an app to the consumer who would kind of go to the store and check out themselves without going to the cashier, without standing in the line, would be a good product to have, and would really solve on both the consumer side from an experience perspective, and for the retailer side from a queuing and bad experience perspective. So that's the first thing that we kind of did. It took us a few months to kind of build that. We very happily did that. That's the other good part of having a tech co-founder in your founding team. So we kind of built that product out. Then we went to the retailers. So we pitched to almost 10, 12 retailers. All of them appreciated the product. But I think Hypercity was the first customer who was very happy to kind of roll it out at their stores. And this is towards the end of, you can say, November of 2016, when we rolled this product out into the stores. Fast forward 1.5 years, we figured that it wasn't working very well because of multiple reasons. That number one, India is not a country as sophisticated as we assumed it would be for a product as niche as self checkout. There were a lot of inherent issues in the customer experience, customer retention cohorts, the key matrices that you track were not working out very well. So we were basically, after spending 1.5 years, we in between raised some venture capital and all of that. So we were very well funded, and we had a good package to kind of continue operating the way we wanted. But after spending 1.5 years, we figured this product is not working. So we went to the drawing board again. The good thing that happened in this 1.5 years was we built very, very good retail relationships. And retail is a market which is like really spawned by good, healthy relationships. And if you add value to one retailer, they would be very happy to kind of recommend you to the other ones, because they don't compete as much between themselves as they compete with online or outside India retailers and so on. So we were very happy to kind of build those relationships. And when we went back to retailers, we asked them, what is it that you need? How do you see the next 5 to 10 years of retail in India shape out? And what would be the core problems that we need to address today to make sure that retail scales up at the pace at which the country is scaling, and all of you are able to sustain and grow massively? That's the opportunity that we got, and we kind of launched another product which is called UltraPOS today, which is a end-to-end billing platform for retail stores. That's where we got a very, very good product market fit. And I think that's very critical for entrepreneurs to really figure out what a product market fit really is. Maybe we can deep dive into that later. But that's very critical, because if you're really building a product company, it's very critical to have a product market fit. Else you'll go on investing cash and resources, and you will never get an outcome of that. So I think after, I think probably 2 to 3 months of iterations on the product, we could establish a good product market fit with the leading retailers in India. And after that, we have been scaling massively for the last 2.5 years in India. And now for the last 6 months, we have been started scaling outside of India as well. We are targeting Middle East and Southeast Asia as the other markets, because they are just like India largely in terms of how they operate, with a much higher per capita, which is why the pricing, etc., you can make from the international markets is much better. And that's what entrepreneurs have traditionally done in India to build large companies. So that's where we are today. I think, I mean, fairly satisfied in terms of what we're doing, but obviously the ambition is much, much larger to grow and really become a billion-dollar company in next probably couple of years and so on. So on track for that. I think very excited to see what's gonna come and how we react to it. So yeah, that's pretty much from my side.
Thank you, Abhinav. That was a fascinating and very interesting journey that you had. Uh, yeah, so we have questions pouring in from the audience. One of the thing what we pretty much wonder all the time is many entrepreneurs say that they are launching the business to achieve independence and control their destiny. But those goals are too vague. If you stop and think about it, most entrepreneurs can identify goals that are more specific. So, Sandeep, what according to you is a driving force for an entrepreneur? Sandeep?
Lax, you don't want me to speak, so you keep muting me.
I've been, I don't know, it's going on automotive.
No worries. So, see, I think there could be different ways of, how you approach entrepreneurship. For me, it's really about influencing and impacting human life. My goal is simple, that I've got to touch billions of lives by the time, we are done. And we are on track to meet that goal. So, I feel that entrepreneurs should also have a purpose why they're doing things. A lot of entrepreneurs do it just for the kick of doing it. Some of them do it for money. Some of them do it for fame. Some of them do it for some purpose. Some of them do it for the joy of the journey. So I feel that it could be any of these. I mean, it depends on the person at the end of the day. For somebody it could just be a learning journey. So for me, it's a beautiful journey through which I can impact and create something. I must also share that there are two different mindsets that are there, which is one is a consumer mindset and the other is the creator mindset. A consumer mindset is somebody who consumes. So you consume social media, you consume content, you consume materialism, you consume all this stuff. An entrepreneur, I think, deep within has to have a creator mindset, which also means that at some point he has to drop the consumer mindset to be able to get consumption mindset to be able to start creating something. So for me, I think that's the key. If you have a creator mindset, then you can create anything, and you will always think of new things to create. And an entrepreneur can keep moving and creating n number of things. So that's how I would look at it.
Thank you, Sandeep. And Abhinav, you started Purpule with a couple of industry experience. What were the triggers and what were the initial challenges that you had?
I think quite a lot. And to highlight the initial ones, it's very hard to really figure out what is that product. And again, talking on behalf of product companies, right? What is that one product that you can build which would add value to whosoever your customer or consumer really is? Would they pay for it? How much would they pay for it? How do you really go about building and keep adding customers on it to make sure that the product you're building is driving something worthwhile for someone out there in the world? And then that's number one, the biggest challenge. After you have kind of sorted that, is second big challenge would be to really make sure you have enough capital to build and sustain your company and create a team which can go around building and kind of dedicate a lot more time, resources to the product, which would finally make it grow, because the opportunity to grow is huge, but it's all about how you capitalize it and how you invest into that opportunity to really leverage and build something massive at scale. So these are the initial challenges, but as you go on, I think the journey is full of challenges, which is frankly the most exciting part if I look back at it today.
Yeah. The other question is generally people say entrepreneurship is all about risks, sacrifices, all right. And even if you have a great idea, you have a runway for a minimum 2 years and a solid team. So, Sandeep, what according to you does it take for an employee to leap into an entrepreneur?
So I think there has to be passion about what you're trying to do. The reason why you're trying to do it should be very clear in your head. So because if you don't believe in what you're doing, then when you try to get employees on board, they won't believe into your vision as well. So I think that's the first thing, that you should be really kicked about what you're doing and why you're doing. And there has to be clarity in your head as well. Now, this clarity may not come quickly. It comes over time also. So it's okay if somebody is very confused, does not know what is my next step, how should I go about it. So you can take that time to try different things and figure your way out as well, which is what I did. I wasn't very clear what I wanted to do, so it took me, a couple of years to even figure out what I have to do. But I think everybody has to have the time to be able to become very clear on what you want to do and why do you want to do, and then you can jump into the how. Yes, hiring a good team is very, very important to scale a company. The entrepreneurs are only as good as the team, and if you don't have a good team, then you can't. And importantly, people join you not for you, but for your vision, for your purpose, and why you want to do it. And also they want to join you to learn and grow, because everybody deep within, we all feel that, can we learn better, can we become better in our lives? And that's the only reason why people join. Now, for employees, when they want to become entrepreneurs, I think the question should be asked to yourself is that, what do you want to do and why do you want to do it? And if you can figure that out, that's the real key behind it. And then you can definitely spend time to figure that out. That's also okay. In terms of the runaway that you talked about, see, when I started, I think I was just trying to say, okay, one more year. Every time I used to just think, okay, one more year. So it's been 5 years now. This is my fifth year as an entrepreneur, and I failed more times than I've succeeded. So I feel that you have to give yourself time. In the first couple of years, nothing's going to happen. That will change everything. You need to have time and space to do it. There are some entrepreneurs who may get a quick runaway and they can maybe quickly take off, but if you are slow as me, then you will take time. So I think it's okay. You have to allow yourself some time and space to do things, and you have to enjoy this journey, because I think the journey is really more important than your destination. You have to really enjoy the process of creating something amazing. And you have to really you should grow out as an individual. That if a few before you became an entrepreneur and how you are today, both your skills and your will and yourself, what you have inside you should have transformed. So an entrepreneur, if he's trying to transform the world, he has to change first himself. Otherwise, it'll just be a very transitory thing of trying to create some impact, but what is it? Where is it impacting you? So for me, it's all about me. If I can change through it, then maybe I can impact other people and change other people as well.
Yeah.
So Lax, I think we are
Thank you.
getting a lot of Q&A questions. I think, some interesting questions as well on the Q&A panel. I think, and one of the questions possibly I would ask Abhinav here is, I think, and essentially, I think, it's more also to do with product startups, where I think, the co-founders whom you select and what kind of co-founders you select. I mean, how do you ensure that, you have the right team? So what were your experiences, Abhinav? I think, when you were you jumped in, and I think, you're looking for co-founders. So what was your journey, and how did you kind of overcome that?
Yeah, so I think, to be honest, number one, there is nothing like a perfect co-founder, right? Because the journey goes on and you evolve, right? So you need people who can grow and learn, right? And as it's said in the startup ecosystem, lifetime of a co-founder to keep pacing up, and people end up doing more. But as average is 5 to 8 years is when a co-founder invests in a company, and after that even they move on. So that's the maximum learning that one person in one place can really do. So there's nothing like a perfect co-founder. What you really need is like a diverse skill set, because when you envision your business, when you're really starting, figure out what are the core pillars of your business. Try to find as many people as possible who are experts of one pillar each minimum. That's how the best of these startups have started. And I think it all depends on how strong a network you have, right? Because there will be too many people who would be happy to join you, and there'll be a lot of people who are just not interested in what you're doing, right? Because when you're building something, it's very early and there's absolutely no validation. So it's all about the conviction that you have, that you can convince people to join you and devote a critical part of their life at risk and kind of build this. The journey is very exciting, so you have to really project it in that way, but always get people who are adaptable, because things change. Like, they change really, really fast, and they change from such a big dynamic, you can say, impact, which is not remotely in your control also. So there's not much you can do beyond adapting to the changes, right? I have a very interesting story to tell here, which I was told, I think, almost 2.5 years back by some of my investors who were like very senior executives at Make My Trip. And it's a beautiful story. Would love to share with you guys. Is that when Make My Trip started, this was somewhere around probably 2011, they started with only flight bookings. And that was the unique thing. Nobody else was doing it in India. Deep, a seasoned entrepreneur, found that trend and launched the company. Okay, almost 5 years, 6 years into the company, they did an IPO, pretty good one. They were having $80 million in revenue. This is somewhere in 2016. $80 million in revenue and $750 million of market cap. Suddenly, Kingfisher tanked. That's the first airline that went down. And after that, all the other, so Jet and Indigo were the other leading airlines at that point. They got together and they said that we won't pay MakeMyTrip the rev share that we pay per transaction. At that point, MakeMyTrip used to make around 8 to 10% of rev share on every single flight booking they used to do. That's how they could command such a high take rate and such a high revenue. They just united Indigo and Jet and said overnight that we are not gonna do this. We're not gonna pay you the revenue because the margins are wafer thin. For us to survive, it's not gonna happen. So overnight, I mean, one of the public companies I'm talking about here, overnight their $80 million of revenue vanished. And the next board meeting, all of them are just sitting, what can you really do? Then they launched the hotel business, took them another 3.5 years to really bounce back and get to the $85 million of revenue mark. So I think uncertainties would always come. And this is something which is never going to be in your control. Because as the economy evolves, as the country evolves, as the different things you engage with and rely on evolve, things like these would happen. So the most critical piece to understand is how well can people adapt to this and not panic in such situations. That's the most critical skill set to have. Okay, everyone still have a positive outlook and beyond that contribute to their day-to-day job. Hope that answers.
Yep. Thanks, Abhinav. I think, there are also a lot of kind of, young entrepreneurs who are there, I think, who want to start. I think possibly some of them are students as well. I think, given that, you started very early, I mean, I think, you worked for two years possibly. And I think, I know that, you had a co-founder who was still in his final year of college at NIT, I think, if I'm not wrong. And so I think one interesting question that people would be interested in is, how do you view student startups? I mean, I think, somebody who is trying to be in the final year has a great idea and actually wants to do something. I mean, what would be your advice? I mean, and again, it has its own share of drawbacks as well as advantages. But I think, would maybe everyone would like to hear about it.
Sure, absolutely. So honestly, I feel being a student is actually the best time to start up and do all the experiments with your life that you can, because you literally have nothing to lose. I mean, we all know how much we need to study at college. All of us know that very, very frankly. I've gone through those journeys. I don't think that is changing massively at any point. And I think this is one thing that I didn't know and probably no one told me. So I would love to share with you guys, right? I mean, take as much risk as possible while you are still in college, build whatever you want. And these are all, you can say, just prejudices that none of these student or like startups in India really work, right? I mean, if you go to US, the Valley, literally like 10-20% of them are still in college and they build it fairly big. So it's all about the exposure. I think the Indian students don't have that level of exposure. And I think I'm talking from my personal experience, right? I knew nothing about what it takes to build a company. How do you really sell? Like, core as being an engineer, right? Not from a management background. It's very hard for us to adapt to those skill sets. But it's just that. So if you find someone who is good at those skill sets, it's much easier to kind of penetrate and build something large. So my advice would be really go back, use that time very wisely. And I think the newer generations, right? I mean, the folks who are coming out of college now, I mean, they're way more smarter than what we used to be back when we were in college. The network is getting a lot more deeper. It's very easy to reach out to anyone and literally learn. So I think that's the most critical piece. We should really take student entrepreneurship very, very seriously, because it's something which has worked very well in US and China. It's just a mindset thing why it doesn't work in India. So I think that exposure can be created and should be created. And all of us should do steps to make sure that students get that exposure to really take the leap of faith and really build something meaningful and worthwhile. Because a company is not just about the product. And generally, folks at college are awesome at building products, but they're not as awesome as the other critical parts of running a company, right? So if they can get knowledge about that while they're still in college, I think that'll be super valuable, and they can go on to build large companies like straight out of college.
Thanks, Abhinav. I think that actually, I think, brings to the next question. I think, in fact, student entrepreneurs and what your views are very useful, because I think one of the fundamental tenets of Founder Institute is to kind of get people who want to do something, and I think, at a very early stage. And I think, students, I mean, they don't have anything to lose, and I think, if they if they join and kind of learn from all the frameworks learned across the successful entrepreneurs across the world, I think that gives a lot of leverage. So I think that helps. The next, actually, is a follow-up question. I think I want to ask Sandeep. I mean, and this is again, I'm moving on from students to employees. I think people. I mean, I think do studies and they join corporates. I mean, they have very good jobs as well. I think very high-paying jobs. Some good. I mean, some people I think are really doing well. Some people do get bored as well. But I think a lot of people, even though they want to kind of have great ideas, want to create ventures, but I think the cushion that employees or corporates provide, I think it becomes very difficult to come out of it. So what's your take, Sandeep, on I mean, and also that's the I mean moot topic for today's webinar as well. I mean, that leap of from an employee to entrepreneurship. So what are those key moments? What one has to do? I mean, I think I mean, be it salary, be it other considerations. What are I mean? I think I would leave that you to put that framework of thought on the viewers here.
So I think for people who are starting early, as Abhinav very rightly said, you don't have much to lose. But let's say suppose you're getting a good package and then you have to give that up. It also depends on how much runway you have, how long can you run without money, and also then you need to put. So there are two parts. One is how do you run your own expenses, and then how do you run the expenses of the company. Now, a lot of entrepreneurs I've seen, they mix these two, and that should be separated clearly, so that your P&L for both should be completely different. Now, from a point of view of a bootstrapped entrepreneur, I think you should look at, okay, what's my runway? Can I survive 6 months, 10 months, 12 months? When will I start getting revenues? So I think that's the question that needs to be asked. It could be asked even before you begin, but once you have, let's say, 12 months of revenue that you can survive for 12 months, so then go for it. At the end of 12 months, you can say, okay, I can do another 12 months. And that's how you do. Now, in case you've taken a lot of debt and you are in mid age, you've worked for a few years, you've gotten married, have kids, you have liabilities and all of that, I think the story becomes even more difficult, because basically it means that everybody's looking at you, and basically you don't know how to run the show then. So I think taking less debts is the key here. People who are debt free are the ones who will be able to run these things. Now, when I became an entrepreneur, I was in deep debt, and that was a big challenge for me. And I later realized that I made these mistakes, which I should have not. So I've been taking debts, for whether it's for home or car and all of that. I think that's what you need to get, stay away from. You have to be very frugal as an entrepreneur. So my needs as an entrepreneur is very little. I think I just need very little to survive. So entrepreneurs cannot be extravagant either in their personal life or in their ventures, and that's a value you need to inculcate. You have to value money. You have to plan your cash flows really well. Entrepreneurs who are not good at managing their own finances, and sadly in India this is the case, they are not able to manage finances of the company as well. So and therefore students may do much better, because they're used to frugal living. They But as you kind of start working for bigger organizations, start earning more money, you start thinking, okay, now my lifestyle is equal to what I'm earning, and you're not able to give that up. So that is where I think you have to give up stuff. Entrepreneurship is not an easy journey. It's a very tough journey for most people. And since the failure rate is so high, I was talking to another Forbes 30 under 30 entrepreneur who I coach. And, he told me this beautiful thing. He said, startups are designed for failure. And that's exactly what it is. So an entrepreneur is actually trying to go against the norm. He's trying to make a startup successful, which is never going to be the case in normal. So now it depends on how he does it. But cash flows, I think managing cash flows for his business and for himself is really the key. And if he mixes both of the two, or she mixes both these two, that's where the problem happens. And therefore, I think you need to be really, really careful around the cash flows.
Thanks, Sandeep. I think Lakshmi, I think you are trying to curate some questions as well. I think next questions you can take up.
Oh yeah. So this question is to Sandeep again. All right. So Sandeep, coming to the DNA part. All right. Do you see, an employee and an entrepreneur? Both of them have different mindsets, right? So is there a mindset or a character attribute that is required from an employee to be an entrepreneur?
Wow, very good questions here. I mean, I'm very thankful that such questions are coming up. So, as an employee, let me tell you how I was as an employee. I was a greedy person because I'm getting money at every on the first of every month, and basically, whether I do work or don't do work, I have to manage my boss, and that's pretty much it. If my boss thinks I'm doing well, I manage it and I'm done. So, I think the mindset is consumerism. The mindset is greedy, and there is a lot of fear as well because if you lose your job, what will happen? As an entrepreneur, I don't think that these things go away, but definitely these things have to reduce. So over time, you have to become less greedy because if you're greedy, you're going to lose because that's the lesson you learn. All the greedy entrepreneurs learn this lesson. And I think that's the change I went through. And also, your character gets built. So most of us don't learn what is character, what is values, what is ethics. We just see these on walls of these companies and we just go around with life and we keep switching jobs for more money. And that's all we do. So basically, it's we don't have that character as an employee. That character really starts to come when you are in a situation. So I'll give you an example. Um, we signed a large deal with a client in the US, and this deal was kicking off. Everything was going really good, and it was the first year of operation, and we said, wow, we've cracked it. And within no time we realized one of the employees in our organization stole that customer away and started his own firm. And everything that what we had built, just came crashing down in front of us. And then there was legal cases going on, and several things happening. And I was like, why do I have to go through all of this? But that's the whole thing. Entrepreneurship is going to be very tough. You are going to be tested. Your character is going to be tested like nobody's business. You should have the ability to be able to talk about your fears and put them on the table and deal with it. If you can't do that, please don't become an entrepreneur, because I think you later on you'll start feeling scared, you'll start losing. So basically the battle is all within. The virus is within.
Thank you, Sandeep. Abhinav, a question for you. All right. So the question is, when would be the right time to go to an investor? Is it a pre-seed stage or a seed stage, or when is the right time? Is a question. Is a question. Is there a right time at all?
Right. So this is a very tricky question, and I don't think there's a right time. But I would say, what is the right approach to this, right? Because it depends on market forces. It's not in your hand, so you can't really define what's right. But the right approach is, I mean, again, not being greedy, but you have to run a business. You have to hire people. You need cash. So try to do it as early as possible. Definitely, don't worry about the valuations and the dilution, etc. Is what my advice to people in general is. But again, you need to cross a certain threshold. You need to have a business in hand. If you're still working somewhere, thinking like 2 hours a day about a product and an idea with no validation, then don't, because I mean, it's like raising VC money is like serious business. So you would need to have a lot more credibility and validation before you can really go on and raise some amount of money. Because I mean, the guys who are investing, it's not their money as well, right? They raise it from LPs. So it's their fiduciary responsibility to make sure that they don't gamble and play with it. So I mean, taking risks is perfectly fine, but having some sort of validation that of commitment, of I mean, of your personal commitment, of the founder's personal commitment, is very critical. And after that, I think if you have a founding team which is committed to a period of as small as 6 months to 1 year, that's the minimum commitment that you can give. And I think that's good enough for a VC to really uh, get confidence on that, because 1 year is a lot of time to really get validation. You will probably not build something very large in that much time, but it's good enough to know whether you are on the right direction or not. And so that much commitment, being full time into what you're doing and not worrying about external factors and starting the business, right? I mean, largely what I keep saying people, right? Raising money is to scale the business. Raising money is not to build the business. Money can't be the business. So that's something very critical to understand. And how you build the business is about, like, if suppose it takes you 10 years to get to a certain mark, you will take capital and get there in like 1 year. That acceleration is what money and capital really provides, and that's how you look at it. Because if you look at money is the business, then you are replaceable. Then it's not in your control, and it's basically in the hands of capital, right? So you need to make sure that whether there is cash or not, because it's a fully external dependent factor, it's not in anyone's control. So your business should survive with or without it, irrespective.
Thank you, Abhinav. Uh, Sandeep, so looking back, what are the mistakes you wish you could have avoided?
So I took 2 years to find out what I have to do. so, so, so that was a lot of money and a lot of time wasted. But I don't know what could I have done. I mean, basically, a person who's lost in life cannot find his way in either case. So, so, so we have to go through that. So, but yeah, I think that's the biggest mistake I made, and but I'll tell you the best thing I did, which I mean, I know it's negative, but I'll tell you the best thing that I did is I never gave up. So I persisted, and I remember my wife looking at what all I'm doing for the 2 years and laughing at me and telling me, you're all over the place. What are you trying to do in your life? So I mean, I knew it that I was doing something really wrong, but I never knew how to. So it's like you're fighting, right? You're trying to find out. Now that whole search, you don't know what's going to be, and you don't have. So what I did was I just, whatever came in front of me, I just picked it up, and that's all what I did. So for example, somebody reached out, okay, you want to work with me on this, or somebody said you want to become a co-founder. I said, okay, sure. It's only later and I did not have a firm mind also. I think you need to have a firm mind as an entrepreneur, and over time I learned that, and then I started becoming, having some purpose, and I started getting understanding of what I wanted to do and why. I think that is important. But yeah, that was my biggest mistake, and but I think if I would have not done that, I would have gone back to a job, because I don't think I would have had the clarity to do what I wanted to do. So yeah, that's, I don't know if I answered that question, but that's what it is.
Well, I mean, maybe Sandeep, I'll just add on to that as well. I think one of the things which I mean, mostly I think entrepreneurs, I think what can help them, and a lot of them do mistakes as well. And I mean, I can share it with my own experience as well. Is, I mean, a lot of times I think when you start, I think you start out with an idea, with a thought of what you want. I mean, some things may work, some things may not work, but I think there's always, I think usually in, at least in the product startups or whatever, I think there is a stage where I think if one has to take a decision whether that idea is not working or whatever. Usually in the product world or in the tech world, I think it takes anything between, like 15 to 18 months, you'll actually come to know. And my advice for entrepreneurs is, like if something, either the model, either the adoption cycles, or something, I mean, I think maybe the market forces itself, there will be 10 things that needs to be coming together for successful companies. I mean, I think to the next stages. So any point of time something is not working, and if you are not seeing the signs of I mean, those success in the first 15 months or 18 months, I think entrepreneurs should be flexible to kind of see and do pivots. And I think in a lot more companies, I think they have, I think companies have done that, and that have led to kind of amazing successes. That's something which I think a lot of first time entrepreneurs do. I think another thing the first time entrepreneurs as well do is I think doing too many things. I mean, because you see a huge opportunity which is lying. I mean, for example, Abhinav says, I think retail is a big thing, and I think instead of focusing only on the point of sale at the, I mean, I think at the retail store, which was a pain point, he could have actually done 10 other things. And when somebody tries to do 10 things, I think the focus gets kind of it gets defocused. And for a product company, I think it kinds of kind of that defocus actually becomes a drawback. So this is another very common tenet for especially the, like young entrepreneurs, first time entrepreneurs. I would say, I think
I,
we need to hold
I
on. I mean,
also want to add to what Vadiraj, what you've said, is that an entrepreneur also needs to be very positive about what he's or she's doing. So the belief has to be there. If you start questioning your own belief, then that's also where you send the wrong signals to everybody, your employees, your investors, your ecosystem. And other bit that I found also was that you need to also um, you know learn and improve. So the skills, the entrepreneur has to keep picking up new skills every single moment. You have to have different skills, and as you pivot, so basically your skills should improve to the next level. uh, if the entrepreneur is not growing exponentially, then the business is not going to grow exponentially. And this I've seen right across the board for all. And I'm coaching several entrepreneurs now, and I'm seeing that also to be able to move to the next level is not easy because we don't know what we don't know. So that self-awareness is not there only in the first place. Only somebody out from outside can tell you, hey, and sometimes you get so obsessed with your idea that you want to hold on to dear life to that idea, and you're unable to let go of that idea. I think that ability to be able to let go of what you're doing also at times is important. And the negative mindset has to be a positive mindset. I was very negative when I started. I'm a very critical engineer, typical person who finds mistakes with every single thing in life. So that has to change. Otherwise you can't build beautiful things.
Yeah, Sandeep, I have another question for you. All right. This one is regarding tough times that we are in today. All right. Do you think this would be the right time to start a startup? Considering that if you're trying to build a product or a service, there's no market. So what would be your advice to the audience?
So there is no market and there is no competition. So I that's how I look at it. In fact, we just started building 1 month back. Uh, all our work, all our businesses went down. So I said, hey, what should we do? So we've started building a product now, and essentially, I think this is the best opportunity of your lifetime to build something, because all the big firms are struggling, all the small firms are going to close down. The funded startups were throwing money on digital, that is gone. So basically, bootstrap firms are only ones who are going to survive in some ways, unless the startups are really really fast to pivot. So therefore, it is the best time of your life. If you can get funding during this time, if you can get your idea to work during this time, you're going to do so well when the times are better, because this is the toughest period. In fact, we are trying right now to build a product just because of this only, because we feel this is the best opportunity. And there are 100 million unemployed people in India today, 127 million. This number is just going to grow in the next 3 months. My guess is right now, one out of every two or three, four or three Indians are without jobs. My guess is this is going to become even worse in the next 3 months. Pay cuts have already happened. So when it's the worst time, then why don't you build the firm? I mean, Disney was founded in 1929, after the Great Depression. And why was Disney founded? Because he thought, let me bring a smile to the faces of these Americans who are all so unhappy because everything is depressed. And similarly, if you look through history, you'll find all the depressions have led to the best startups being founded. So I feel this is the once in a lifetime opportunity. I've never seen something like this ever before. And I think nobody will ever see this again, at least in a lifetime. I hope we not. But basically, I think it's the best opportunity. And you're seeing startups raising money during this time as well. Now, investors are there in the market, they're sitting with the cash, they don't want to part with the cash, but if they find a good opportunity, they will. So I think that's the advice I would give. I mean, there's never a better time to start.
Yeah.
So I'll add to that probably, Lakshmi, is that if you see historically, right, like best of the companies are found in this depression, basically,
Yes.
historically, the Great Depression, the last economic recession, etc. Because the market is the most pure at this moment, and cash can't influence the market because nobody has excess cash, or even if they have, they won't put it in things which are not fair. So this is the best time for fair play, which is why the best things really come out. And honestly, the best of these startups really come out of now. So from my perspective, yeah, now is the best time to start because every resource is like very, very accessible. So the ROI is going to be super awesome, but you should really find a niche that works well for you and not go behind things which are going to take a long time to convert. Like if you probably open something in travel now, then not the best of the chances. So find the niche correctly and then focus is what I would suggest.
Yeah. Thank you, Abhinav. And Abhinav, probably a couple of a few more questions. All right. So before we close on the webinar, do you have any piece of advice for someone starting out? If what would it be? If you had
Sure.
one piece of advice, yeah.
Yeah, I'll probably share the most critical piece, right, which is have conviction and humbleness both, because the combination of that is very, very rare a commodity, right? Like people who have very high and strong conviction are the ones which are hardest to adapt to changing circumstances. They are very, very wary to pivots, etc. So balancing those two scenarios out is very, very critical. And making sure that whatever you're building, right, is going to be large, because you're committing a critical part of your life to it. So unless there's an opportunity where it becomes super large, or keep reiterating, keep thinking, and come out with something which has a big potential. The other thing that I would also suggest is look at international markets. This is something that is not been, you can say, taught very well in India for obvious reasons, because we have the maximum number of people, right? 1.3 billion people. So always the natural thought that comes is build for India, which is a great thing, no doubt on that. But the opportunity might just, an opportunity which is very small in India might actually be phenomenally bigger outside. And if you can look at that from day one, right? COVID is only helping that, right? Earlier, to build companies in outside of India, you have to travel there, you have to go there, you have to meet people there. Like now, nobody cares about meetings, right? So you can sit in Bangalore and have a VC with anybody in Seattle or China or Southeast Asia or Middle East, wherever you want. So think and evaluate that very actively, because there are a lot of opportunities. And largely, if you see Southeast Asia, Middle East, Europe, these are places which are much behind India. So stuff that has become a norm for you, me, and people here in India is actually not there in quite a lot of parts of the world. So if you're really building that and adding value, your ROI is going to be much, much higher, and your overall process of building would become much easier.
Abhinav, I think as a follow-up question on that, if one starts, I think, and I agree, these are the right times as well. Founders Institute was started around the downturn, in 2009. I think, Airbnb was started around those times. And I think these are the best times because, as you said, I think, this gives a huge ROI. And the problem statements to be solved as well are quite high. One other thing, a lot of, I think first-time founders also struggle is, when the whole aspect of when they start somewhere, I think, they have an idea. I think one thing that they struggle is in terms of validation of the idea. I think there are also questions around that. Second thing is the whole aspects about after that idea, I think, the whole aspect about moving to MVP, the minimal viable product. I think that part. And post that, I think, you have a MVP or of sorts. Then you actually, I think, go on to kind of go into the growth track, and there is a product market fit product that is required. So what you would call as a PMF, kind of a product market fit kind of a product. So with your own experiences, when you started Perpule, I think, how was your journey? From an idea to MVP to PMF stages. I think that will be extremely useful for the folks who we may be wanting to start.
Sure. So I honestly, for us, it was actually very easy, and we are probably one of those lucky lots for us. It was literally very easy because so we launched in October of 2016, but we started thinking about what we wanted to do probably from January, February of 2016. So we had a good 6 months of thinking period, and we actually did build some small prototypes to see if there's any validation, if the idea and the thesis, the hypothesis that we are going behind is even making remote logical sense. So that's what how we did it. While working, you can still do prototypes, right? And go test them out at a very limited scale. You probably won't build something large, obviously, because you're not committed into it, but you can at least get the early directions. Are people appreciating what you're building? Are people going to pay for it or not? These are very, very critical questions to answer. So find answers to those questions. If you have, the moment you feel that probably another 30 days, 60 days, you can convert people who would be very happily using your product or service, and they would even start paying for it remotely in some or the other form. I think that's enough validation for you to really take the plunge and go all in and build and try to build on from there. Beyond that, I think a sense of completion of the market and the product is also very critical, because as you go further, right, you will figure out that things change very dynamically. So you have to be very focused on what you're really building, and make sure that the opportunity only scales and grows further. If 3-4 such things are aligning, then I think you are in a very good place to really go start and build more validation and probably raise money and build a much larger company from there on.
Thanks, Abhin.
Yeah, so that brings the end to the session. All right, we hope it was a fascinating session for all of you.